Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. As I dive into this episode, I debated releasing this episode a couple of times because I had admittedly a little bit of this kind of imposter syndrome because I wanted to talk to you about what I think are the 3 keys to a successful podcast. And from my perspective, Keep What You Earn has been successful. It's been achieving all the objectives I had for it and more. But if you were to look at it in the grand scheme of podcasts, right, it's doing pretty well, but there's so many things that I want to grow about it. There are so many guests I'd love to have on the show. There are so many ways that I would love to get the recognition for this show. And I go, well, I don't have 1 million downloads a month. I don't have like some things that my friends have, because I have friends who have millions and millions of downloads on their podcasts. And I'm like, okay, my little show, what could I possibly teach people about running a successful podcast, right? But I do feel like there are certain things that we have kind of nailed. I'm not going to lie. And I say we because I have an amazing team behind me. I have several phenomenal teams because I've had different editors, and not for the sake of changing them for dissatisfaction by any stretch. It's been just their businesses have evolved, and I've been switching the team members that are doing the podcast, right? So as roles evolve, they're taking on different duties. And I've had such amazing people behind this show from day one, and I couldn't be more grateful. But what I've noticed is that certain things work, certain things drive growth, right? It depends on what your goal is for your show. But I am in a position to share this with you because I feel like I have learned so much in the last 2 years of podcasting. This month it's 2 years. I think as I'm recording this, I'm a week away from my 2-year anniversary of the show, never having missed an episode, and doing over a year of daily episodes. So here we go. I'm going to tell you some tips on successful podcasting. So I called it my 3 C's. The first C is content. And these also, by the way, map to the top 3 objections to starting a show. So everything that people complain about and they say, well, I'm not ready to start a show because I don't have enough content. Well, we're going to bust that right now. Key to a successful show is content. Now, if you think you don't have enough content, you're wrong. You're wrong. And I'm going to explain why. So this is an exercise I recommend anybody do. If you're thinking of starting a show or a blog or a YouTube channel, whatever it is, some type of long form format, but you're like, oh my God, where do I start? I don't have enough content. What would I even talk about? Right. Which is hilarious. It's hilarious to me because I feel like I have no shortage of things to talk about. Obviously, here we are deep, like, what is this, episode 379? Yeah, plenty to talk about. But if you're feeling like that, here's my challenge to you. Sit down with a blank piece of notebook paper, a blank spreadsheet, a blank Word doc, whatever floats your boat, whatever you write in the best, or whatever you use for ideation and for note-taking. And I want you to sit down and go through in your head the different topics that you teach on, aka you work on for clients. And I want you to come up with as many questions as you can on those topics. So I met with my marketing mentorship group that I work with other accountants. And we were talking about content creation. And I said, here's what happened to me 2 years ago with my podcast, by the way, is my I don't even know what to call you, Sid, if you're listening to this, but Sydney is my CMO / fractional COO / consultant. Like she's the backbone of Keep What You Earn, just so you know. And she was the one who sat down with me. She was doing my social media at the time and my operations. And this is pre-Courtney, I think. I can't remember. It's all a blur. But what we did was she sat me down and she was like, you need to start the show. It's going to do well. And I was like, I don't have enough content. And I did this exercise. I sat down. I said, you know what? I'm going to sit down and write down what I'm going to say or ideas of what I could possibly talk about. And I did this with my marketing mentorship group. I just gave them, I said, listen, S Corps. Because these are all accountants, by the way. They know this stuff. So I go, S Corps, come up with as many questions in the chat as you can around this topic of S Corps. Like, what are the questions that people ask you? And they came up with I want to say in 30 seconds, they came up with 20. And I was like, 20. Okay. That is, that is basically, if depending on how you slice it, that's 5 months of weekly content. If you can answer all those questions in 10 minutes each. And that was kind of like, oh my God. So that's it. And I was like, yeah. If you'll notice, just like peeling back the curtain for a second, you may have noticed by now that many of my episodes are phrased as questions. That's not coincidental. That is actually a function of how we craft the episodes, which is around the questions I've gotten from people. So I will get a question from someone privately through a DM, through my text messaging, right? And if you have questions, that is a great way to reach out to me because I will answer those questions live on the show and then send you the link to the episode. Or I'll send you, most likely, I will send you a voice note in real time so you don't have to wait 6 weeks, but I'll send you a voice note in real time answering the question and then saying, thank you for this because this is a great podcast episode. A good chunk of these episodes are actually real questions I've gotten from people and they make for great content. And this is why you're still here listening because you can relate to the questions and relate to the content. So if you're listening to this and debating starting a podcast, 100% you have enough content. You totally do. And the second C, which is I was trying to decide between two different C's, and that is consistency and that is commitment. Because I believe you can't have consistency without commitment, and you're not really fulfilling your commitment without consistency. So what I mean by the consistency is your ability to show up and create the system that works. Like your ability to show up and be consistent for the sake of being consistent. Like showing up even when you don't feel like it and just knowing you've made this commitment. So I kind of have this philosophy of like commit, you'll figure it out later. Like the first step is just committing yourself to doing it and you'll go do it. I was mulling over this for about a year in starting my show because I was going, well, I'm worried about being consistent because there are going to be weeks that I'm working a ton of hours. And there's going to be weeks that I don't have as many hours, but like, do I really want to fill my time with this? I have this tendency to fill my time with more projects if I do have capacity. I just get kind of restless and I want to do more work and I create work for myself, right? Anyone else? And I realized that this could have been one of those scenarios. I said, I want to start a show, but is this just a project I'm starting because I feel a little bored right now? And I'm not going to feel bored forever. This is a commitment. This is like adopting a puppy. It's fun. It's a great idea in theory when you have time. But then like you got to train it and you got to do all the things and you got to have responsibilities around it and you got to pay for food. And you're like, oh man, this is actually really expensive and really time consuming. And I was so scared of that. I was so scared of that. So what I ended up doing was I just said, I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to do the show. I'm going to say yes to Sid. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to set up all the tools and the systems and everything that we're doing. I'm going to set up everything on the, whatever it is, I don't even know, the hosting service, right? All of the platforms. And I said, let's just do it. I just kept committing to it and saying, let's do it. Let's do it. And then over time, I realized that I committed. So I have to fulfill on that commitment. Like I just had to keep that promise to myself and to my team that I was going to keep doing it. And you guys helped a ton because those of you who listen to the show, if you reach out to me in the DMs, if you reach out to me via text message or however you want to contact me, and you say anything nice about the show, it means so much to me because it means that consistency was worth it. Like that showing up every day and delivering some type of content for you, you found valuable. And it really does mean the world to me. There are some of you who reach out to me pretty frequently, and I'm so grateful because it keeps me going and reminds me that people are actually listening and that I have a responsibility to serve you. So thank you for that. And I think that if you're thinking about releasing a show, that you'll discover that as well. You're going to realize that there are people who are going to be relying on you and will call you out if one of your episodes doesn't show up on their podcasting platform. Or will say, hey, like, where's today's episode? You usually do daily. Like they get into the habit and then they expect you to, pop up every Tuesday. And if you don't, they're like, oh, like, where's Shannon? So it's true. It's well worth it though. Now, the last thing is conversion. So we talked about content, consistency, conversion. These are the three elements of a successful podcast. Conversion is the part most people skip. So I think people will hesitate to start a show because of content and consistency. Once they overcome those two obstacles, those two objections, they tend to start. But there's one more objection I want you to overcome explicitly, and that is conversion. So very important that your podcast, if you're going to start one, has a place in your ecosystem. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you're going to be doing this as a business owner, if the purpose of the podcast is to drive traffic into your business, you have to have a way to do a couple of things directly and indirectly. You have to be able to monetize your show somehow in an indirect way to start. And that means simply sponsoring your own show with your business, sponsoring your own show with one of your products, offers, or courses, sharing affiliate links in your show notes, inviting guests on the show who are strategic partners who you can cross promote, and you can actually make money off of affiliate links and bonuses and stuff. And you can be able to actually monetize your show, not just itself, but you should be able to indirectly monetize your show by having strategic guests on the show, right? Building relationships. You should be able to indirectly monetize by, pointing people to resources that they can use, and including your courses, your offers, right? And ultimately, even if it's a lead magnet, even if it's free stuff, right? You've heard me talk about on the show all of my free stuff. I would love it if you would download, the podcast playlist or the cash flow forecast template. Those are things that I have put together that serve up value for you if you're where you should be to receive those items and you want them. 100%. You should absolutely grab those. There's no strings attached, no pressure, no nothing. But this is a forum for me to share those with you, because if you're liking what you're hearing and you're enjoying the content, you can then start interacting with the content by actually downloading pieces to go implement the stuff that you're learning. So if you do run a show, you do want to have some type of next step. If you're going to be educating people on your show, you're going to be adding value by with some form of education, even with storytelling, even with entertainment, right? You want to give people, if you want to make money doing this some way or put it as part of your business, you've got to give somebody a call to action. You've got to give your listener a way to continue taking action after they're done listening to the show. And that could just be going to your website. That could be, joining the conversation in a routine event, like a monthly calendar event, a monthly live event, right? A Zoom, whatever it is. And you just have to continue the conversation and find a way to interact with people and to build relationships outside of, the digital world where there's one-way listening. Start the conversations, invite people to DM you, invite people to interact with you so that you can then build the relationships. You can then, create long-lasting customers, fans, advocates, whatever you want to call them, right? Based on how you can serve them. So if I were to say you're starting a podcast, very tactically, you want to have a good launch plan. You want to have a good delivery plan, fulfillment, a guest process. It depends on how you want to structure the show. And Lord knows we have built an amazing machine that does all these things. But fundamentally, the core pillars for a successful podcast to me are the content, consistency, and the conversion. You want to make sure you've got all of those really strong before you move forward in actually producing your show. I hope you found this helpful. I love, love, love sharing more tips about podcasting. And if you want to explore the podcast a bit deeper and go back in time, you can absolutely download the podcast playlist generator that's available in the show notes. The podcast playlist generator basically meets you where you're at in your business and generates a curated playlist of about 10 shows that you're going to find valuable right now based on where you're at in business. So grab a copy of that in the show notes, and I'll see you on the next episode. I can't believe how many episodes we've released of Keep What You Earn. There are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in tax savings contained in our episode library. And there are so many topics that we cover. To make it easier to find more of what you need right now, we actually created a custom curated playlist just for you. That's right, a playlist of value-packed episodes that you're looking for based on your goals right now in your business. Whether you're making your first sale, trying to strategize your taxes, or you're scaling your team, there is something here for everyone. Check out the podcast playlist generator now using the link in the show notes and explore your custom playlist. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.